Hello guys, this is Movie Lover and welcome to this Movie Lover world. Today we are going to explain a 2013 horror thriller movie called Nurse 3D. At the beginning of the movie it is narrated that during the last 15 years, the FBI has documented that more crimes have occurred within the healthcare profession than any other profession. After that, a woman named Abby Russell goes to a nightclub and says that her appearance may look like a bad character woman. But it is a disguise to lure the dangerous predators, the married men who cheat, lie and spoil innocent women. In the next scene, a man named Fred finds Abby very attractive. So he takes off his wedding ring and attempts to approach her by paying for her drink. But Abby puts back the money in his pocket and takes out his wedding ring, saying how his wife would feel if she comes to know about his character. Then the duo is seen at the roof of the nightclub where Abby tempts him and slices through his femoral artery. She gives him a couple of options, telling him that he can take the stairs to save his life, however he will lose his life within some time. Just then she throws the man off the roof of the nightclub. Abby is a passionate, dedicated nurse at All Saints Hospital. She narrates that all the nurses at the hospital get a new student to mentor, and Abby's student is Danny Rogers. She attends Danny's graduation ceremony where Dr. Robert Morris welcomes the new nurses at the hospital. After the ceremony, Danny introduces Abby to her mother and stepfather Larry Cook. Abby also meets Danny's loving boyfriend Steve, who is a paramedic. He brings an emergency case to the hospital and gets a chance to spend some good time with Danny. He then asks her to move in with him, but she refuses, leaving Steve confused about the reason behind her refusal. After that, a nurse named Regina shows up and catches the duo meeting secretly on her first true day of nursing. Danny is scolded by Dr. Morris for her inability to respond quickly to an emergency. Abby views the situation with disgust as she knows that Dr. Morris is an evil-minded who enjoys trapping new nurses at the hospital. Then Abby narrates that she wanted to comfort Danny in that situation, but she found that she chose to call her boyfriend for support rather than approaching Abby herself. She is pleased when she finds that Danny's call to Steve has ended due to a fight upon Danny's refusal to move in with him. Then she explains to Abby that she cannot trust her stepfather to leave him alone with her mother. Next, while Danny and Abby are on their way to a nightclub, Danny witnesses her father having an affair. She talks to him, but he somehow ignores the situation and leaves with his girlfriend. At the nightclub, Abby persuades Danny into drinking and has a good time with her, including a stranger. During this, she also takes pictures of Danny with her and the guy at the nightclub. The next morning, when Danny wakes up with Abby next to her in bed, she struggles to remember what happened last night. Then Abby makes her a cup of coffee and tells her that she has texted Steve from Danny's phone and hasn't told him about last night. She notices that Danny can't remember anything from last night. She asks her to skip work and spend the day with her. But Danny is concerned about her job. Abby got angry with her and says that Danny may forget last night like a dream. But she will not let her get away with what happened. She downloads the pictures that she had taken from the previous night after Danny leaves her apartment. Abby meets her neighbor Jared on her way, who tells her that she shouldn't be going out alone and offers to protect her. But Abby refuses. She then goes to see a psychiatrist, which is revealed to be Larry Cook. She tempts Larry by saying that she is addicted to men and that whatever she does in her life is because of the inspiration she got from her father. She has a flashback of herself when she was young and her mother took her to her father's office. Larry understands her condition and recommends she attend some seminars that will help her to get over her addiction. Danny shows up at the hospital where she learns that Steve has sent flowers for her. Dr. Morris tempts Danny while Abby notices him and seems angry as she is possessive about her. While Danny takes a shower, Abby narrates that Danny is unaware that Abby has been part of the activity that happened. After they got drunk, she reveals how obsessed she is with Danny and her body. Then Abby gets frustrated when she looks at the flowers that Steve had sent for Danny. So she breaks the vase and later gathers the pieces, apologizing to Danny. She tells Danny that she should never let Steve pressurize her for moving in with him, but Danny declares that he has never forced her. She tells Abby that Steve has been there for her when she was all alone after her father's death. Abby becomes emotional and says that she can understand that Danny wants to protect her mother from Larry, so she gives her a spare key to her apartment, telling her that she can stay there whenever she wants to. Danny is thankful and feels that Abby is very kind and helpful towards her. In the next scene, Abby shows up at Larry's place of work and asks him for a ride. She tells him that her bad habit is taking over her again. Larry says that they should discuss it and takes her to an alley only to have some good time with her, calling her his favorite client. Abby paralyzes him with vicuronium bromide and finishes him off. In a car accident, she feels happy to have eliminated a monster like Larry and considers it as revenge for cheating on Danny's mother. She arrives at her apartment where she finds Danny, who has come to take refuge after hearing her stepfather's death. When Abby learns that she has decided to move in with Steve, she gets frustrated and says that she shouldn't be with him as she is the one who understands Danny well. She also comments that she hopes that Larry's below the belly part was damaged in the car crash. Danny realizes that Abby knows about the car accident, although she never told her about how Larry died. She leaves her apartment and decides to never meet her again. The next day, Danny sees Detective John Rogan talking to Abby. He then asks Danny to give him a call if she suspects anybody to be involved in her stepfather's accident. Later, Abby reveals to her that she was Larry's patient, which surprises Danny as to why I did not let her know before. Abby decides that instead of helping Danny, she will now hurt her. Next, we see that Abby sends Danny a few pictures from the night they spent at the nightclub. Abby is met by the new Human Resources employee Rachel Adams, who says that Abby greatly resembles a girl, Sarah, who stayed next door and was sent to a mental institution. Later, Rachel spots Dr. Morris having a good time with a young nurse in his office. Just then she encounters Abby, who invites her out for drinks. Danny moves in with Steve, where she gets a mail of her offensive pictures from Abby. Later that night, after Steve leaves for his work, Abby calls Danny via Skype. She finds a drunk Rachel who is being injected with some chemical by Abby from behind. Danny tries to tell Rachel to look behind and save herself, but Abby ends the call. Right after that, Danny informs the police, and the next day Abby convinces Detective Rogan by saying that Danny is mentally ill and is obsessed with her. After that, Detective Rogan talks to Danny and asks her to stay away from Abby as he knows that she is obsessed with her. He tells her that Rachel only passed out in Abby's apartment because of being drunk. He also shows her offensive pictures with Abby, which angers Steve. Danny tries to explain that Abby made her unconscious that night and she came to know that through a blood test report. Rogan tells her that her stepfather was finished off by injecting general anesthesia, which Danny used in the hospital on the day he died, indicating that she might have eliminated Larry. Then Steve and Danny get into an argument, which results in Steve leaving angrily. In the next scene, Abby finishes Rachel off, who was about to search for Sarah Price's photos on her laptop. Danny goes to the mental institution which Rachel had referred to, where she learns about Sarah Price, a little girl who eliminated her father, Dr. Robert Price, when she was only 8-year-old, after knowing that he was having an affair with a nurse and watching him beat up her mother. Danny comes to know that Sarah was taken in by a nurse at the institution named Abigail Russell. She then realizes that Abby is actually Sarah Price and she has taken the name of her caretaker. Dr. Morris talks to Abby about the complaints he has received from young nurses related to her. She somehow convinces him to meet him privately and later finishes him off. Eventually, Danny calls Nurse Regina to get Rachel's number and then finds her phone in her car trunk. She then calls Abby, who is in bed with Detective Rogan. She tells Danny that she will finish Steve off in the same manner as she did with Rachel. Danny leaves a voicemail for Detective Rogan saying he needs to believe her that Abby is Sarah Price and has been to a mental institution. After that, she rushes to the hospital to protect Steve from Abby, who gets into a fight with Danny and knocks out a couple of staff members. Danny beats her up and Abby is seemingly passed out. Steve shows up and Danny tries to explain to him Abby's reality. But just then she finds that the passed out Abby has disappeared. In the next scene, Steve and Danny follow Abby to a ward where she finishes off a few patients. Then she lays on a stretcher and pretends to be unconscious, but then attacks Steve and rushes out of the ward. Right then she goes to a doctor in the hospital and cries for help, pretending that she is in a severe condition. While she is taken on a stretcher, she eludes suddenly Abby, then rushes home, where she is confronted by Detective Rogan, who tries to arrest her. Just then she notices that her neighbor Jared is watching the situation, so she pretends that Rogan is a thief who is trying to rob her. He then comes outside and hits Rogan over the head with a bat, finishing him off instantly. He is horrified to find that Rogan is a cop, but Abby somehow convinces him to hide the body, saying that he does not have any other choice and Rogan was a corrupt cop. Realizing that the police won't spare him, Jared does as Abby tells him. Then Abby narrates that she has done enough of what she wanted to do in that city. In the final scene, Abby takes the identity of Human Resources employee Rachel Adamson, shows up at a new hospital in a new city to start her new job, and the movie ends here. Thanks for watching, guys. Movie Lover will meet you again with new story. Till take care.